Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're talking about one of the most incredible human skills, reading. But we're not starting in a classroom with a book. Nope, we're going all the way back to the very beginning to build a reader from the ground up. And to do that, we have to talk about something called reading readiness. And this analogy, it's just perfect. It frames everything we're going to talk about today. You know, learning to read isn't like flipping a switch. It's more like a careful, deliberate construction project. You can't just skip ahead and try to build the complicated roof, which is, deep comprehension, without first laying a really wide, really sturdy base.
Okay, so let's get into it. What does this foundation actually look like? Well, a lot of the most important work happens long before a kid ever sits down for a formal reading lesson. It's all this invisible learning that's happening all around them, every single day. So how does a child first start to read the world? Well, think about it. They see what we call environmental print absolutely everywhere. Logos on cereal boxes, stop signs, the name of their favorite store. They're also watching adults all the time, seeing these constant demonstrations of literacy, like when you read a recipe or check the news. They even become little apprentices, working with you on some task that involves print. And this is so important. We accept their approximations, their baby talk version of reading and writing, as a sign of development. All of this teaches them a core belief that all these marks and symbols carry important messages. It makes them value print.
Now, here's a huge developmental leap a child has to make. They look at a picture book, and they have to figure out that the pictures and the words are doing two totally different jobs. The pictures, they tell a story with images, but the print carries a very specific coded message. Understanding that those squiggly lines aren't just part of the drawing is a massive step.
And this brings us to the very first absolutely crucial reading lesson: print carries a message. And like any code, it has rules. For English, it's a concept that's simple for us, but profound for a new learner. The message moves from left to right and from the top of the page down to the bottom. If you don't get that basic rule down, the code is pretty much unbreakable.
Okay, let's add the next layer to our foundation. Because before a child can ever decode print with their eyes, they have to learn to listen with incredible precision. It's all about tuning the ear. And that brings us to this term, phonological awareness. I know it sounds super technical, but the idea is actually really simple. It's just the ability to hear and play with the different sounds in spoken language. We're not talking about letters yet, just the sounds themselves. Think of it like tuning a guitar before you play a song. This is not optional. It's the absolute basic requirement for learning phonics later on.
So how important is all this playing with sound? Well, the research on this is crystal clear. Children who are sensitive to rhyme are way more likely to become successful early readers. All those nursery rhymes, all those silly songs, they are not just fun and games. They are incredibly powerful literacy tools that build a super strong foundation for reading success down the road. So here's how that path to phonics really unfolds. It starts with developing that sensitivity to rhyme, through all those songs and stories. From there, kids start to build something more specific called phonemic awareness. That's the ability to hear the tiniest individual units of sound in a word, what we call phonemes. It's the most advanced part of phonological awareness, and only when they can hear those distinct little sounds can they finally make the big leap to phonics, connecting those sounds to the written letters, the actual symbols of the code. Okay, so we've built this awesome auditory and conceptual foundation. Now we can start to look for the specific, observable goals that tell us a child is genuinely ready to start their journey as an independent reader. These early learning goals are kind of like checkpoints on the road to reading. We know a child is getting ready when they can start linking sounds to the letters of the alphabet, when they can hear and say the sounds in a word in the right order. Then you'll see them start reading familiar words and simple sentences all by themselves. And they start to get the basics of a story, who the main character is and what happened first, next, and last. These are the green lights that tell you readiness has been achieved. So here's the million-dollar question. How do we help build this tower, right? How can parents and teachers actually support this incredible journey? Well, the key isn't to just push them harder. It's all about guiding them. It's about meeting learners exactly where they are. And that leads us to this really powerful concept from a psychologist named Lev Vygotsky, the zone of proximal development, or ZPD for short. Just think of it as the sweet spot for learning. It's that perfect space between what a kid can already do on their own and what they can achieve with just a little bit of guidance from what Vygotsky called a more knowledgeable other. which could be a teacher, a parent, or even another kid. It's all about giving the right help at exactly the right time. So how does that ZPD work in a real classroom? Well, it's through something called instructional scaffolding. First, a teacher does a baseline assessment. They just want to see what a child already knows and can do when they walk in the door. This avoids any jarring jumps in what's expected. Then, they provide the scaffolding. That's the supported tasks and easy-to-understand input that lets the child succeed at their current level. They might even use a really familiar story to teach a new skill. The whole idea is to stretch a child's abilities just enough to help them grow, but not so much that they get frustrated and give up. And really, the ultimate goal of all of this, the ZPD, the scaffolding, is to make learning to read feel like one continuous, connected experience. It's not about just handing a kid a box of puzzle pieces and walking away. It's about helping them build a bridge from what they already know to what they're learning next. That way, the huge leap into independent reading feels natural, not sudden and scary. And so, that brings us right back to where we started, our tower. This really says it all, doesn't it? You simply can't start with a complicated roof, with deep, complex comprehension, before you've built out that wide, sturdy base. A base made of phonological awareness, understanding how print works, and having a rich vocabulary. Every single complex reading skill a person has is supported by these essential foundational building blocks.
So I'll just leave you with this final thought. Now that we've kind of pulled back the curtain on this whole process, how can we all get better at recognizing and supporting this invisible work of reading readiness? The work that's happening not just in a classroom, but on street signs, in the grocery store, and during bedtime stories. The building blocks of a reader are literally all around us all the time.